Welcome to another episode of Scorecard here on Channel 1 TV. We had the FA Cup final this weekend. It was Crystal Palace making history, picking up their first piece of silverware as a club. I know how crazy that sounds, 1905 till date, and this is their first piece of major silverware. So basically, everybody who participated in this goes down as a legend. For Manchester City, that's back-to-back FA Cup final defeat. So Pep Guardiola and his people will have a few things to think about in what has been an abysmal season. Now, we have some thoughts on the final day of the Premier League. We'll be getting into that as well because it is going down to the last day as far as the Champions League slots are concerned. Arsenal made sure of that with their result today against Newcastle United, and then we have Chelsea and Nottingham Forest all up in that mix. So we'll talk about that. When you go out of England, literally every other league has been decided except the Italian Serie A. So we had another installation of more drama today. Inter Milan and Napoli Football Club both failing to take a decisive step towards the final day. So a lot to talk about on that end. The Under-20 World Cup, or the Under-20 AFCON, has come to an end. We'll be telling you a little bit about that. And then there's some NBA playoffs action as well. Let's do a quick turnaround here. When we come back, we'll get to some highlights and then we'll get rolling. Welcome back to Scorecard here on Channel 1 TV. I have my men in black in the studio. I don't know what's going on, but two different iterations of black. I like it.
We didn't even coordinate. So this one is...
It was just coincidence.
Pure coincidence. Ain't you wearing white, so it's a nice contrast. Nice
God
contrast.
is good. What have you been up to this weekend?
Oh, you know how it is. Just enjoying the football. You know, the FA Cup was a nice one.
Yeah.
It was great to see so many people like crying, because I think if you're a team and your club, you're a supporter of a club that wins things, it's very difficult to get this emotion, this worked up about something. It has to be something maybe you've never won or you've not won for a long time. So I think watching the Crystal Palace fans get that emotional, crying, you saw people crying tears. You could see like...
And they went to Wembley in their numbers.
I mean,
I think they had more.
I think they were in London, so...
Of course, I mean,
They're
South London
yeah.
to Northwest London, it's not too difficult. Northwest London, that area, is not too difficult. So it's a long trip for London, but you make it for your team.
Yeah.
So
and you don't make these trips a lot. So.
Exactly. And look, this is their third final. They lost the first two. In fact, Alan Pardew played in the first one, managed the second one. So maybe he was their bad luck. Maybe getting him out of the way.
He still gave us a famous celebration.
Yeah, so.
I remember that.
It was a nice weekend to see some interesting things. I mean, we thought Serie A looked to be over about 15 minutes ago. We thought that Inter were 2-1 up. Napoli couldn't get a win. We thought that Inter were about to steal the title. The Eredivisie was very interesting.
Yes.
I mean,
Bologna also winning.
Bologna win the cup. That one wasn't interesting for me, but it happened. So things were happening. So very, very, very nice weekend. Very nice weekend in sport and football in general. So.
Good weekend. No, but I haven't seen you in a minute. Where have you been?
I've been around.
Celebrating a league title.
Oh yeah. Like cruise control.
I need to pull up in a championship T-shirt or something like that next week for Scorecard.
Yeah.
All red.
Just for
You
shaking
should also
reasons.
get Champions 25. You should go and do something.
I have a Liverpool scarf somewhere, but in Ghana, I can't really wear your scarf. I can just put
It's
on.
rainy season.
Yeah,
So
I have an excuse to bring it
yeah,
there.
rainy season.
There's that. So all of that.
Just to add to it, it's just been an interesting week for football. With what Susu said, you see fans who are probably 70 or 80 years been supporting this club, season holders. They finally get to. It's just rewarding if you look at it. You look at Bologna too, haven't won anything in I think it's over 70 years. So in general, I think this season has been
50 years since the 70s.
Yeah, this season has just been interesting. You got Newcastle winning the trophy, and then the subtle undertones. Nketiah leaves Arsenal to get more playing time. He doesn't get the playing time though,
but still gets a trophy.
He gets a trophy, and Arsenal go trophy. So it's just been interesting.
I'm thinking about a lot of teams breaking their trophy ducks. What does that mean for the Europa League final that is coming?
There's that.
And even the Conference League final.
Betis.
But Chelsea have been winning things more recently. Betis are not. Don't win.
I think Betis won a Copa del Rey like 4 years, 5 years ago.
If it's too recent, they won't win.
Pellegrini is a decent coach. We'll see what happens. Let's get right into highlight mode, and let's start off with a game that will impact the final day of the Premier League season. Aston Villa still chasing European football. They were up against Tottenham Hotspur, who have that Europa League final coming up in midweek. So let's get the highlights of this game. And so Aston Villa have taken their destiny into their own hands, winning that game by 2-0. Let me get thoughts on that particular game. So when you look at the table, it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th place, all on 66 points. Villa 4th, Arsenal 2nd, Newcastle 3rd. So all to play for heading into the final day of the season. Villa, I believe, will play. Let me see. Let me just check that game out real quick. They have Manchester United. So let me take your thoughts on that. How are you rating their chances based on what everything is looking like?
Well, Manchester United can't win a Premier League game to save their lives. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about them later. So, with that in mind, I expect Villa to comfortably win.
So, Old Trafford, though?
Oh, but has that mattered this season? Like, it doesn't matter where United play. Once they are playing a Premier League game, it's like they just don't know what they are doing. They don't look like a team capable of winning. So, for me, and what we saw from the Spurs lineup, again, they didn't come to play. You could see that the final was all they were thinking about. So, really, it was a routine win for Aston Villa, and I expect a routine win next weekend. But I believe they are 5th right now.
Yes, Villa are 5th.
Yes, it just depends on what Man City are able to get up to. That would, for me, decide whether they'll qualify for the Champions League. Because City are below them now, but City have a game in hand because City played over the weekend.
City have Bournemouth and Fulham to play.
Yeah, exactly. Those are not easy games
Those are
at all.
tricky games.
They are tricky games. So if City get a result against Bournemouth, maybe they win or they draw. I think they can get 4 points from those games, and with 4 points, I believe they'll be above Villa. So Villa will have to see what the other teams do because their goal difference is not good. Their goal difference is +9 last time I checked. And if you see the other teams are in their 20s and their 30s. So it's very difficult for them. But I think they have a very good chance. They just have to hope some other results go their way. And knowing that Forest and Chelsea are playing
have a
each
final
other,
game to play.
That cancels each other out.
That is my game of the round.
100%. In fact, that's the only game where there's something riding on it because right now 8th can't even get you into Europe.
Yeah.
Because of Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup. Right now all the teams in that from Forest, City, Aston Villa, like we mentioned, Chelsea, Newcastle. Because Arsenal have qualified for the Champions League now with their win. Those 5 teams are the only teams with something to play for, and 2 are playing each other. So very interesting last day coming up.
Nubo, just quick thoughts on Villa's chances. Can they get this done?
I think they should be able to get over the line. And we were talking of, say, 3 or 4 games ago, they looked the least likely to qualify. Forest looked to be in cruise control. They dropped a few points over the past 2-3 weeks, and now it looks like they are out and now looking in. So for Villa, Manchester United, let's say, depending on how the results go either ways, it's going to be an easier fixture for them. If they lose the Europa League, there's nothing to play for. If they win it too, they'll be very comfortable. So Villa just have to go to Old Trafford and make sure they win. Regardless of how the other results go, I think if they win, they should be able to make top 5, and then that run which they have now will continue.
Yeah, speaking a little bit on Nottingham Forest, they won this weekend, but that Leicester game, that's 2 points that they really should have let. Because if they had those 2 points, I believe they would have been 3rd currently. Right?
And even the Brentford game at home, they shouldn't have dropped. They shouldn't have lost.
They've dropped points that we expected them to
pick up. But you see,
up.
I think Leicester is the one we should really, because Leicester, I mean, have been a very easy.
To be honest, the club is in a little bit of a somber mode. There's something with Taiwo Awoniyi. He suffered. He's been put in an induced coma over an intestinal injury.
Yes, his intestine got punctured. When he hit the post. So I think his rib broke, punctured his intestine. Just a very strange and unfortunate injury. So, I mean, they got the win.
The mood is down in the club.
Yeah, they got the win, but they'll probably look back at that Leicester game and feel that if they had got those 2 points, they're in cruise control. They go into the Chelsea game knowing that
they could even afford a draw.
A draw might be enough. Chelsea will have to come at them because Chelsea need the win. Now you're in a situation where you might need to go at Chelsea and get the win. So it's a very difficult one for sure.
So Nottingham Forest, they have a difficult game coming. We'll get to their highlight later. Aston Villa, though, have been a very informed team in recent times. They have picked up 12 points from their last 5 games, 9 goals scored, 3 conceded. So good form, just about the perfect time to close out the season. Let's get more highlights, and this time let's get to that game that was played between Chelsea and Man United. Not a lot of goals in that game, not a lot of quality either, but in the end, Chelsea got their goal. They got an important 3 points. That means that they live to battle on to the final day of the season. So Chelsea Football Club just doing enough to get over the line, like I said, making sure that they have their destiny in their own hands. Let me start with you, Nubo, on this one. So I've noticed something strange about Maresca and some stuff he's doing tactically. So they have 100 million defensive midfielder who's been playing at right back recently. I'm not sure what's going on with that. The captain of the team, who is a right back naturally, has been sitting on the bench a lot lately. When he comes in, he plays as a right centre half. What exactly is going on?
Okay. Everything about that Chelsea team is weird. And then you see Kukurea always lining up at the back post for. I think he scored about 3 or 4 goals.
In fact, he's rescued Chelsea in a lot of tight situations this season.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he'll say with that it's working, but this Maresca just shifting things around. For me, it's a bit weird. He started the season very well. It looked settled. Yep. I think he was playing Caicedo, Lavia, and then was it? I've forgotten who exactly it was. Enzo. Then later on, it balanced out. Then Kopama, after December, I don't think he has scored or assisted in a lot of games. He's been a bit off color.
Yeah.
And then they're just struggling to create chances. Nicolas Jackson, it was being mentioned he was injured. But it's not like when he wasn't injured, he was scoring a bucket load of goals. So there's tactically something wrong with this Chelsea team. And it looks like the coach himself is still figuring things out. He's not putting players in their best positions to bring the best out of them. And that is where the problem lies. And now they find themselves, honestly, with the last 4 games they had to the end of the season, I didn't even expect them to still be in the top 5.
True.
So kudos to them for grinding out certain results.
Yeah.
But then now their last game is against Forest, who is also contesting for top 5. That's where it gets a bit tricky because Forest, we all know how they are going to play.
Yeah.
So if Maresca does his tactical nuances and all those things and it doesn't play out, and then they don't win that game, he'll be found wanting. And that's where I feel like the problem is, because he needs to have settled by now. You had a whole preseason.
Yep.
And you've been still doing... That thing never makes sense to me.
And the irony of the matter is that everybody thought he was going to be settled because he made up his mind very early about who wasn't going to be part of his plans and who was going to be part of his plans. It hasn't happened.
Only to even bring Chalobah back.
Exactly my point.
After sending him away.
Looks a little confused. Are you clear on the tactical shenanigans going on at the back? Because Malo Gusto is a right fullback as well. He's also not getting a look in.
And sometimes when he comes on, he plays on the left.
Yeah. Don't worry. He knows what he's doing. He has a plan.
Oh, no, I don't
You don't see the vision, but there's a vision.
But why do you buy 100 million DM to use as a right?
Part of it
and then you paid 50 or so for Lavia.
But you see, part of it is that I guess he's trying to fit Lavia and Caicedo in the team.
But he had them playing together at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, but he had, that's when Palmer was playing on the wing. But I'm sure he's not sure about his other wingers. So he thinks Palmer maybe has to play the number 10.
The club's captain is your right back.
You have Madueke on the right. You have Neto seems to be playing on the left, and then Nicolas Jackson. So he's still trying. I believe what it's like is maybe he has 14 players that he looks like, okay, all these players can start. How do I fit as many of these 14 players into the same lineup? And then you start switching things around because he probably thinks to himself, I need Madueke and Neto on the wings. I need Jackson and Palmer to the middle. So the front 4 is decided. Now, I have to pick between 3 of Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo. And it becomes very difficult. Okay, now you move Caicedo to right back to fit them all in because Reece James, he's always hit. So we've not really been seeing him. We can play without him. We play without him most of the season. I believe that's the thinking. But then now, Reece James comes, there's quality when he plays. He's doing good things for them. So I think to yourself, okay, now let me try and bring him in the team some way.
To affect the attack.
Look, I can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's the smartest use of the players. And when I look at the table now and everything, that game against Forest, we all said it was going to be a final. We all said that was where Champions League be won or lost. And without Nicolas Jackson, I just don't see them winning that game.
Even with him, I don't think they win.
I don't see them winning. I don't see them winning that game.
They struggle to score without him this season.
Exactly, and that's where the problem starts because the way I see it now, I expect Villa to beat United. Yes. I expect Newcastle to beat Everton. They're at home. We know Newcastle are at home. They get it done. Yeah. So Newcastle and Villa are winning. Arsenal have qualified.
Yeah. So City have to pick, let's say, 3 points from their 2 games.
I see that the way I see it, it's between Chelsea and City on who will miss out. Because I don't think Forest can push themselves, and I think too much has to go their way now.
Yeah.
Now that they've dropped those points, they shouldn't have dropped. So I see it as Newcastle win, Villa win, then Chelsea or City, depending on how.
I think it's actually between Chelsea and Villa. City just need 3 points from their 2 games.
The reason I'm saying this is that if Villa win and Chelsea draw, Chelsea are out.
Yep. So if Villa win, they go to 69 points. Chelsea, I believe, are 65. Chelsea's maximum will be 68 for the season.
Yeah, I think right now Villa are above Chelsea.
Yep. No, they are.
Villa, Chelsea,
and
the same points.
Villa. So Manchester City, Newcastle, I believe.
No, Manchester City are below. Manchester City are out.
3 teams are all on 66.
But the way I see it, I think they brought the table.
So third, fourth, and fifth are all on 66.
So Villa, you see, Villa on the same points as Chelsea.
Yep.
But I'm very sure that Villa and Newcastle will win. So I'm saying that if Chelsea, like we are saying, don't beat Forest, it's between them and City to see who will finish in that 5th spot.
Well,
because we don't know what City will do in their 2 games now. Because Bournemouth and Fulham are not easy games.
Yeah.
So right now, the way I'm looking at it is between Chelsea and City. One of them will miss out. Because I think Villa and Newcastle will win their last games and get what they need to get. So that's how I see it. So even for 2nd place, it's between City and Arsenal. So we have to also see how City play to see whether they can even get into 2nd place. But they have the most variance because of that extra game. You don't know how they respond in the Bournemouth game. Are they down? Are they up? Are they motivated? Are they like, okay, let's make up for it? So a lot to play for.
Just one more question on the Chelsea stuff before we take our first break. Chelsea are at a watershed moment in their season. If they miss out on the Champions League, it's a big deal. If they don't win the Conference League final, it's a big deal. Do they continue with Maresca?
They've said they will continue with Maresca. They are happy with what they've seen this season.
They said they will continue?
No, he's been given that. They've said it that they will continue with Maresca. So it's not about whether they should. It's not this one.
Do you agree with that?
No. I believe if he doesn't win the Conference League and
misses out on Champions League,
or misses out on Champions League, he has to do one or the other. To me, that's the bare minimum. In my opinion, the Champions League is more important. In fact, failing to qualify for the Champions League for me
will be detrimental financially.
They should sack him, but they've already said they are cool with what he's done so far. So that's their decision. But to me, he has to win the He has to get into the Champions League, and in addition, he should win the Conference League. Truth be told, if he doesn't do both, he should be sacked. But just to be fair, he just needs to do one for me, and I'll give him a passing grade. That's how I'll be fair.
I think he needs to do both.
I'm saying that
this game is like their most, I would say, difficult
conference.
They've
not had a difficult Conference League game the whole time. So I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day,
you know Chef Anthony.
I'm not even thinking about Chef Anthony. This one is students versus master. Pellegrini versus his former player and mentee. So
wait, Maresca played under
Pellegrini and Malaga.
Wow. That's very interesting.
In fact, he uses Pellegrini's offside trap. They have a penalty box. So their offside trap is they try and use the penalty box as a line.
You know what's crazy? You just took me back to when Malaga had their money season and were trying to buy everybody in sight. Exactly. Lasted like 2.5 seasons and then everything.
Funny enough, that was a Qatari guy who came in and left, and Man U fans are begging for
Altani should have.
I think guy might have been called Altani. We'll have to check. That guy might have been called Altani too. He might have been called Altani.
Anyway, we'll take our first batch of messages when we come back from the break. Let's take our first break now. When we come back, we'll bring you some more action on West Ham United. We'll talk a little bit about Kudus Mohammed. Looks a very frustrated figure at West Ham United. Is he going to stay? Is he going to leave? How much should even be brought in for him? We hear there's genuine interest from Qatar, or Saudi Arabia, sorry. Let's see how that plays out. Let's take our first break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Scorecard here on Channel 1 TV. Let's get to some other highlights, and this time West Ham United, they were up against Nottingham Forest. Difficult game for them. Pivotal game for Forest. They needed to win to give themselves a chance going into the final day of the season, and that's exactly what they did. So, major win for Nottingham Forest. Let's start off on the Forest notes. Let's talk about that. Good win for them, away victory, but I don't know if it's because they were good today or West Ham have just been poor. I mean, evidence of that first goal they conceded.
if you remember, I was saying that the Leicester-West Ham games was why I was sure Forest would qualify for the Champions League, because to me, that was 6 points that they would get very easily.
Yeah.
And then going into the Chelsea game, they're in a very strong position where they don't necessarily have to play for a win. They can even sit back and play for the draw and still play in the Champions League, which was why I was very confident about them.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't beat Leicester means that this win is a little bit irrelevant. It puts them in a stronger position, of course, maybe depending on what Man City and other teams do, but it just makes me very scared for them, because I expect City to get 4 points from their remaining games, which will make it very difficult for Forest. But look, they've been great all season. Yeah. Very solid, very consistent, apart from the last few weeks. And look, for a team that we all thought would be, finishing 14th, 15th, if they had an okay season, a good season for them, we all thought would be 12th. Yeah. This has been nothing short of a miracle. So despite it coming to a flat end, we have to be honest, it's a bit flat, because they were third for so long. We all thought that Champions League was secured in the bag. It's a disappointing end to the season, but still a very successful season. And for me, between Ancelotti and Nuno, one of them has to be manager of the year for sure.
Yeah. Talk to me about West Ham United and the kind of campaign they've had. I don't know. I'm putting Amorim in the Potter slot as well. I'm putting Potter in the Amorim. I think they've been terrible. I feel like they are not going anywhere because of the kind of rosters they have. Players just signed by the previous manager, big name players, expensive players. How are they turning this around, and how do they move on from a season like this?
It's going to be very difficult. I think they need to do a total rebuild, if you ask me.
With what money again? They've spent all their money last. Lopetegui came and spent all the money.
They will have to do a total rebuild, because I feel the core of this team that played very well in the Europa League, won the Conference League. I think they are on their last legs. You look at Antonio, we've not seen much of him this season.
Yeah, he had a bad car accident and broke his leg.
Exactly.
And he's like 35, so.
There's Paqueta.
You look at Paqueta. Paqueta hasn't looked as good as he's been like 2 or 3 seasons ago. You look at Kudus.
There's things on his mind. He has very serious.
Exactly. I investigate is still ongoing.
Look, I'm very sure, just sorry to cut you off, that in the next few months, we are going to hear Paqueta has been banned for football for life or 10 years. I think it's going to be that bad. Because we all know that
where's Dan Tonali?
Yeah, but see,
10 years is crazy.
Tonali was betting on football. He was betting, but he wasn't betting on games he was playing in. He wasn't influencing games. What we are hearing is that, allegedly, Paqueta got a yellow card to help some friends.
He was literally betting on he had put himself in the best situation.
Once you do that, they are going to hit you with a bigger, because that's the biggest form of disrespect to the sport.
To the game,
just sorry to break it. So for me, I feel like Paqueta's career is one of the last few bands we'll see. Seriously, but sorry.
Yeah, so
that's crazy to even think about. Yeah. So there's him.
There's him. Kudus hasn't been himself. Last season he had an amazing season. This season he's been off color. He had some issues with Lopetegui at the beginning of the season and all that. So then the players they brought in.
He changed management. So Kudus sacked his long-time agent, Melendowicz, was managed by his family for a bit, and then he went on to sign for a German agency, a German sports marketing agency. So that's where he is now. Yep.
So it's been a lot. Then the players they brought into Fulkrug, in and out of the squad. So a lot has just not worked for them.
He seems very disappointed with the club. If you remember that post-game interview, he seems to feel like he's wasted his time.
Fulkrug?
Yeah. Remember, they even tried to sign Evan Ferguson on loan.
He called out his teammates. He said he was disappointed in the level of effort he was seeing in matches. That's crazy.
Yeah, it looks like they're already on vacation, if you ask me. And I think this job might be a bit too much for Potter. Because if you look at over the past 2-3 years, what the West Ham fans have become accustomed to, I'm sure they were thinking they'll be in the Conference League or the Europa League next season. They are nowhere close to that. So then now what happens?
They are just lucky that the promoted teams were just that bad.
That's the point. So then what do? Do you sack him? Or at least they give him 10 games into the new season? It doesn't look like he has control of this team. He doesn't look like he has control of the dressing room.
I think Potter and Amorim, let's be honest, if by December we are seeing the same things, they are still at the same point in the table, the only logical thing is to sack them.
Because I don't see what West Ham is going to change. Like we rarely established Guido Rodriguez, big money signing. There's the.
I think Soler is on loan, right? So he goes back.
So they have him on loan.
Now to Debo, do you sign him?
Good.
Does he go?
And he's been a complete flop.
I don't think if you are West Ham, any of the players on loan get signed, because if they were any good, you wouldn't be where you were.
Exactly my point. And they have big full crook like this, big name signing. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon. How do you get rid of players like that? Because I'm sure Potter is asking for about 3 or 4 players to come in. I'm not sure how they're going to make that happen. So
West Ham probably sell Kudus or something.
West Ham have a very big budget
money.
because
they have money.
Look, I was looking at some rankings outside the top 6. They are the richest club in the Premier League, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think they're up there with Spurs also.
Yeah, that was outside the top 6. They are the richest club in the Premier League. They have a very big stadium in the London Stadium, so there's a lot of fees they get. Look, it's a big club financially in terms of it's up there with like the AC Milans and the Inter Milans of the world financially. I know it's not something you expect to hear, but they have quite a decent amount of money, so they can get things done. So they can afford to get rid of some guys, sell some guys. We're hearing Kudus, there's a Saudi Arabia deal, potentially 100 million for the club. I'm sure the club would look if the club got that offer. I'm telling you, they charter their plane straight away and take him there. Seriously. Because where else are you going to get 100 million from after the season is hard? Yeah. So it's a difficult one.
Some good money.
Do you think it'll be concrete? Do you think there'll be a real bid for him?
From Saudi Arabia?
I'll not be surprised.
I have to be honest, that's the only place to come from based on the season is hard. Because if you're a top team, what would you have seen this season from Mohamed Kudus that makes you feel like, oh, we should sign him? Was it not this season where he had that thing with Van der Ven?
Yeah. Was this season?
He's had everything about
this everything season. That could have gone wrong this season. Yeah,
because it's like disciplinary issues, falling out with the manager, agents drama,
performance.
Yeah, it's just been like a bad. I don't know what changes. It is.
Finishing in the bottom half.
Even his Black Stars performances have not really been as impressive as they've been. Like, I don't know, maybe
turmoil.
Yeah, he just had a difficult look, but he's young, so I expect him to bounce back. But if you're West Ham and you're thinking about when can we cash in on this asset, that Saudi deal is probably the best deal because top clubs will now be a bit more like, okay, this guy came from Ajax, he came in hot, we are looking at him, he looked like, and then you're thinking to yourself, so are we going to get a feast of famine every time? You have one good season, then the next season he's bad. These are the things they worry about. So for him to move to a top club apart from West Ham in Europe, I think he needs to do 2 or 3 more seasons to make up for this bad season. Because that's the thing about a bad season. People remember the bad seasons longer because they are looking for reasons not to sign you. Because the reasons to sign you, if you are scoring a lot, it's easy to be looking at someone. It's the reasons not to sign you that stick out. So I believe to repair his reputation with top European clubs, he needs 2 or 3 seasons. But with Saudi money, they like flashy toys. He's still an excellent dribbler. He has an excellent shot on him. He can make a difference.
And he's Muslim. That's a good catch for him as well. And I don't think that the lifestyle will be a big struggle.
Was there a specific Saudi team mentioned?
I think I've heard of Al Nassr. I have heard of Al Ittihad, I believe.
Al Nassr really need a freshening up because they didn't even qualify for the Champions League this year. So
and then Al Hilal. Al Hilal, I believe, have inquired about a couple of Premier League players. They are looking at Yuri Tillema as well. So they are.
And Villa have financial issues as well.
Nunes,
so there's definitely. I think there are definitely at least 2 big Premier League players heading to Saudi Arabia this offseason.
I think we are hearing also Emi Martinez because of the Villa issues.
Exactly.
So I think a Villa player will be going to Saudi for sure because of their financial issues.
They've already cashed in, I think, was it 70 for Duran?
Yeah, and he's not even performing that well in Saudi.
Went and played 5 or 6 good games, became an early fan favorite, and then just decided to disappear. Let me read some messages. This one here is from AJ Manuel watching live from Ho. Says the Champions League has 5 spots now, but for now the 4 teams to qualify will join either United or Tottenham. I think Man City and Newcastle will join Arsenal and Liverpool.
It's 5 teams apart from United and Spurs. So.
A cut from Dan Soman says, which of these 2 scenarios surprises you guys the most? Forest, which was in third in the EPL majority of the season and now in danger of missing out on Champions League football. United, which is 2 steps above relegation in 16th, and Spurs 1 step above relegation in 17th, both playing in the Europa League final, which is a crazier scenario.
I think it's the Spurs United.
I think the
final.
Spurs United, based on their league form. I think at the beginning of the season, if you had told me this was the Europa League final, I would have believed you. I think based on the clubs and the fact that their budgets, and these are teams with Champions League aspirations, them getting to the Europa League final was not out of the realms of possibilities. But after seeing how they've played this season and some of the performances they've given this season, the fact that they've made it so far in Europe, I said it a few months ago that the rest of Europe should hang their heads in shame that they've allowed this to happen. Seriously.
Spurs have lost 20 games in the season.
Yep. United have not even lost in Europe this season. Come on.
Wow.
Come on.
That's just that. That's
honestly,
just
they played away at Lyon. They played away at Bilbao.
I think Lyon, especially.
Even Rangers.
Lyon should have knocked them out. Seriously. When Lyon took that 4-2 lead.
Olympic Lyon have not been a serious team for a long time.
No, but you see, you take a 4-2 lead in extra time.
Yeah.
And
some way, somehow managed to throw it away.
If you realize,
I think they had a red
if you realize about a lot of things about extra time now, nowadays a lot of the time games go to extra time. There's one goal in it, max.
Yeah.
If a goal at all, because a lot of games, once it goes to extra time, both teams are afraid. They are cautious.
Look at the Inter-Barca one.
You score 2 goals in extra time and you don't hold on. That's embarrassing.
Let me read more messages. This one says, "Good evening, Ben. Kudos to Chelsea for winning against United last Friday, and I hope we are going to beat Forest in our last match of the season to qualify for the Champions League next season. I'm praying for Spurs to also beat United in the Europa League final come Wednesday, because we cannot allow United to disgrace the PL in the Champions League next season." Sir PK from Ahafo Sankore. This one says that sewing machine from La Paz. So you guys should give some credit to the Chelsea team. They are inexperienced, especially Susu. The way you spoke about Chelsea, they won. Give them some credit. That's all that matters. You said they won't win the rest of their matches, and they've won 4 out of 5. So give them some credit.
I gave them some credit last week.
You did.
I'm giving them credit.
Fans take these things personally. They are hurt.
They don't listen. That's the problem. They hear one thing, they run with it. They don't listen.
The humble pie on set.
Oh, I don't eat pie. I'm lactose intolerant. I don't eat pie.
Anyway, let me read more. This one says, Ben Nimley is always absent when United lose a game. Why? Kudus from Ho. I've told you that it's.
But you see, right now I feel like it's just that he's absent. And United lose every week.
Yeah.
So it's like
United lose every other week. so it's
looking like
it's what it is. It's what it is. Please bear with us. Let's do more highlights. Let's get to Arsenal versus Newcastle Football Club. Arsenal have been struggling lately. Newcastle are trying to get as many points as they can to also be in the Champions League picture. In the end, Arsenal proved too strong for them. Let's get the highlights. So Arsenal Football Club trying to salvage Champions League football, which is the only thing left this season to pick up. A season that started with a lot of bright prospects. Let me start off from you. Very disappointing season from Arsenal. You can tell that they are going through the motions just to finish. But when they start evaluating their campaign for the next season, what should be the most important thing on their minds?
They have to win the League or Champions League. It's that simple. I believe they've reached a point where if they were to win the FA Cup or League Cup, would you even feel like they've achieved something, quote unquote, considering the level they've played at in the last few seasons? With all due respect to those competitions, not that they are not important to win, but they're the type of thing is like, okay, you spent all this money, you've been second 3 times, you've been challenging for the league, you reached the Champions League semi-final, win one of the big ones. Those competitions are nice to win, but you win one of the big ones. I believe for all we spoke about Arteta as one of the best coaches, that's how you show it. For me, I don't think it's good enough if we go into next season and Arteta says, oh, we've won the League Cup, so we've had a successful season. I think Arsenal are past that point. I know they haven't won in about 5, it's been 5 years since they won a trophy. But the progress you've seen, the money they spent, the conversations we have them in, they need to win the league or the Champions League.
Arteta has been using very interesting buzzwords to confuse the fan base. He says things like they are about to enter phase 5 of his project.
He said that, he explained that the project has different phases, and phase 5 is the trophy winning phase.
So
well, that's a bold statement if you ask me.
I think that he's
he's right. This is the trophy. So if he doesn't win,
then he's hanged himself with his own words.
Yeah,
he's basically saying that this is it.
Trophy or bust. That's what
I
he's
agree,
telling us
I
now.
agree with him. And for me, it's the League or the Champions League. Seriously,
It has to be the big ones.
it has to be one of the big ones. I have to feel like, wow, this is one of the best. And if you win the FA Cup or the League Cup, I will not say, oh, Arsenal are one of the best teams in Europe if they win that, because where they are now. Yeah. That's the conversations they are in. This is one of the best teams in Europe. He said it himself. They were the best team in Europe this season. He said they
even played better than PSG.
It's very delusional.
Exactly. So once these are the conversations you're in, it's the League or bust. Serious. The League or Champions. In fact, let me not say the League or bust. League, Champions League or bust.
Well,
for me, I'm at the point if he doesn't win them, I think it's very valid to sack him because you've given him a lot of time,
lots of money, resources,
a lot of players. You've let him do his thing. So yeah.
Let me take your thoughts on the same thing. What do you do with this Arsenal at this point? It looks like they'll salvage probably that second spot, get into the Champions League. What next?
The Champions League, they are in.
They're in the Champions League, yeah.
I still think Arteta wants to do this his way. He doesn't want to buy into the suggestions of he needs to get a striker to win and all those kind of things. But the rumors are they finalized the deal for Zubimendi.
We're hearing Mbeumo is next.
That's also, so what, supplement to Saka? He still doesn't want to buy a striker because...
has scored 19 goals this season, more than any Arsenal player.
Man.
Yeah, I think he's top 5 assists also.
So they're not buying a striker?
I don't think he plans on buying him. I think he plans to do this
Your Perez has finished the season with close to 35 plus goals.
39 goals in the league.
About, that's crazy. Just won the league.
Jonathan David is available on a free. They are not even in that conversation.
They look at Jonathan David.
I'm just saying.
Don't do that.
If Arsenal buy Jonathan David, there will be a riot.
If they buy Jonathan David and they win the league, I'll clap for Arteta. Well, I know that Arteta is showing us that he can win the league even with a striker who's not serious.
No, Jonathan David, if you're a serious team, look, I think he's a serviceable striker for
West Ham.
Those kind of teams, mid-table teams.
Those kind of things.
Not
even
a team that's...
Even Spurs shouldn't buy Jonathan.
If you are red hot and looking for, like, if you're looking for like one striker to move you to the final step, level, yeah. I don't think he's that guy. Anyway, we'll see how Arsenal figure out that particular situation. But let's now talk about the FA Cup final, because that was one of the main attractions of the weekend. It was Crystal Palace up against Manchester City at Wembley. Very interesting path they both took to get to the final. Palace were owners of some resounding results en route to the final. So let's get the final itself and then we'll come back and discuss. So Mr. Texter and Parish were up in the director's box somewhere observing their investment, and this is probably the proudest moment as owners for them and literally in the club's history. Like I said, 1905 till date, first ever piece of major silverware, big deal for them. Qualified to the Europa League as well.
It looks like John Texter, he has the magic touch because he ended his Botafogo team also.
He should touch Olympic Lyon.
Also won their first Copa Libertadores.
Why can't he touch Olympic Lyon?
Oh, that one, they're getting relegated. So that one, that's a different issue altogether. But look, like we said, this was not going to be an easy game for City at all.
Yeah.
Oliver Glasner said, look, Pep, what worked the last time?
He said he has figured it out.
If you try it again, it won't work. I'll beat you. I mean, look, when people stand on business like that, you have to clap for them because he said it plain that he knows what he's coming
from. And what was crazy for me was by the 60th minute, all the people I was watching the game with were saying, you know what, you can't sit low block like this for another 30 minutes. That's just unthinkable. But that's exactly what they did.
My City just did not look threatening. I think Haaland, maybe when he gets to Wembley, he freezes because 7 games in Wembley, he hasn't scored once. For a player like him who scores goals for fun, basically, it's very difficult. But I think I believe his confidence is quite low right now. Even the penalty he gave away. I know a lot of people are wondering why.
Yeah.
7 penalties this season. He's missed 3. That's a lot.
That's almost 50%.
He's missed a lot of penalties. I can understand why in this moment he felt that Marmoush was a better option because he picked up the ball and gave it to Marmoush. Yeah. So let's be fair to him. He's missed quite a few. So he was probably thinking to himself, I can't afford to miss another one. But it might have been better off if he did because, clearly it didn't work out for Marmoush. But after the fact, it's easy to say, oh, Haaland should have taken it. Hindsight. What I was wondering is why Kevin De Bruyne didn't take it.
Yeah.
As the captain and the big game player, he might have been a better option. But even Pep's deployment of De Bruyne was strange to me.
Yep.
Because he had him playing in a double pivot. Who was he playing with?
Was it Bernard?
Was Bernardo Silva.
Yeah,
they didn't play any DM in this game.
Yeah, the whole team.
No respect.
And you know, maybe that's even because if you remember the goal, look at how they were able to combine after the long ball, play the ball wide to Munoz and just come into the box. Maybe a DM might have tracked that run better. You know, so
you should have seen them trying to run back. You should have seen the two of them trying to track back during the counter.
The two of them just
Bernardo and De Bruyne.
Yeah, so I don't know. And Pep was a bit agitated after the final. So it looked like he had some words for Dean Henderson. Yeah. And I understand because there was an argument that Dean Henderson should have been sent off for that handball outside the box.
What's the rule? Because his feet were in the box.
No, once the ball is outside the box and your hand touches a handball outside the box. But what happened was that because of the way the ball was played and it was going wide, the VAR deemed that it was no longer a direct goal scoring opportunity or dogso as they call it. So the handball was not a red card offense. So VAR could not call it back and say he has to be sent off. And that's also why they didn't call a foul or a yellow card, because VAR doesn't do yellow cards. So
but I think that's very subjective, because if you look at the incident, if he doesn't touch the ball and Haaland controls it, that's a clear goal scoring opportunity.
You see, I guess because the ball is going across and it's not down the middle, it's kind of like the ball is like going, let's say the ball is going away from goal before Haaland is trying to control it. I think that's what saved them, because I believe that if it was going straight down the middle and he does that, it's a straight red, they won't even think about it. But looking like the ball was going kind of diagonally away towards the corner flag or the throw-in is what saved him. So I believe that and considering that he saved the penalty after that, you can understand why some people feel like Crystal Palace were a bit lucky. But look, I would say for a decision like that, I can live with it. I'm not going to come here and say that that's a complete mistake. That's a decision that is understand. The logic of it, when they explain it to you, is like, okay, fair enough. But so, and Man City really didn't create much. Nope. That's the bigger issue.
Spent about 30 minutes with the ball doing nothing.
Even the penalty we spoke about was a bit questionable.
It was.
Because Bernardo Silva is falling before the tackle. You know, so even them, they got their chance and they didn't take it.
I was so disappointed watching the pair of Doku and Savinho. I was so upset. They didn't beat their men once. Not once in the game did Savinho go past his man.
I think Savinho was poor.
But Tariq Mitchell is hard to beat. Let's be fair. Tariq Mitchell is very difficult to play against.
No, but look, as for Savinho, I have my eyes on him, because if you're a Brazilian, like I always say, if you're a winger, I expect two things from you. You can either hug the line and get in crosses, or you can beat your man one-on-one and come inside and make things happen. If you can't do either of the two, what am I doing with you? I don't get it.
Comparisons to Mahrez
in fact, Savinho actually did it. He went close to like 15 games without scoring his first goal. He went two assists in his early games, and then went on a very long drought. Doku same. City career started very promising.
Doku, the end product has always been an issue. But luckily for Doku and Savinho, I think at their age, there's a lot to come. Savinho is 21? 2021.
They're just about,
Doku
both of them
is like 22, 23. There's a lot to come, but when you are looking at a team like Man City, you're going to be competing for trophies every year. That's always going to come. Sometimes it needs to come sooner.
Has time for
it needs to come sooner.
Talk to me about this from a Palace perspective. So Eze comes alive, especially in the second half of the season, leads his team.
And he scored 6 games in a row, actually, with this game.
So they came into the final with a very strong performance against Villa. I think 3-0 it was. Very resounding performance. He scored an absolute blinder. Got a second one, I think that was even disallowed. He's had a really good run up, and there were lots of question marks about his seriousness as a player, his ability to make the jump to the next level. How much of this final performance, this trophy, does that answer, and what does this mean for him?
I think as a team, Crystal Palace have done very well. I think Glasner in his first 10 games this season won just 1 or so.
They started very badly.
And for most teams, or for most teams in the Premier League, that should get you sacked. But then they believed in him. I think he ended last season very, very well. They believed in him. They picked up steam somewhere in the middle of the season. And I think for a team that lost their major talisman, who was Olise last season, they've done very well. It looks like they were late bloomers. And if I remember correctly, I think they considered just 1 goal the entire FA Cup.
I saw something like that.
I saw something, and that's
their run was really serious. They won 3 back, so 3-0 to get quarterfinal, semi-final, and then eventually into the final.
That's very remarkable. And for Eze, I think he has picked up form at the right time, getting into the summer. I'm sure he's in Tuchel's plans for England. And for me, I do think
I'm wanting to for England.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. The Curry was last season. He was one of their better players.
Sheikh Dukuri, yeah.
They were asking for, I think, 70 to 80 million for him.
He barely played this season.
Yep. Watson comes in and he's been very excellent.
Brilliant. The best part is that he's a lefty on top of it as well.
Like, he's so calm on the ball. He's passing. He just calms everything down. So I think they have a very good squad. I would say they keep majority of these players, make 1 or 2 additions, go for a good run in Europe, and then now they can sell and make some extra money.
And
but they have an excellent coach in Glasner.
Has pedigree in the Europa League.
He won it with Frankfurt. I think was it 3 years ago.
Exactly, he's a Europa League winner, so he knows how to play in that tournament, and I think that gives them a good base. You add some players, and look, you win that, you go find the Europa League. It shows players that look, this is a club that's serious about things. This is a club that you can grow and build. So. Look, I think this can be transformative for Crystal Palace.
Do you sell your big players, big question marks? Gehi, Eze, probably expected to move. What do you do?
With the fact that you're getting extra money from the Europa League and there's a possibility for Champions League qualification through the Europa League.
You don't sell.
You don't sell because, you were thinking about selling Gehi for 70 million. Will you get...
Now they ask for 100.
Yeah. And even if you get that 70 million, sure, you can rebuild the squad. But why not try and add to this squad and see how far you can go? Okay, maybe if you reach the Europa League quarterfinals, finish 9th in the league, no European football, you've had a good try at it, then you can still sell Gay for 70, 80 million. You can still sell Eze for 80 million. There's a lot of play. Even Mateta, maybe someone would think to themselves, okay, we can do something with him because he's a very good striker. So for them, if you're Palace, the temptation to sell is there because this is not a club with a lot of money. But I believe that they should try and maintain and do their best to push forward and use that revenue to try and do something. Because, look, a good Europa League, they can do a Manchester United, finish 15th, 14th, and get into the Champions League by winning the Europa League. It's there for them. And Glasner will say, I've won it before, why can't I do it again?
I love this for Crystal Palace fans because I think I passed in Selhurst, like on what one of them premises.
South London has a lot of guys.
I just peeked like through the window and I saw Selhurst Park, like very modest ground, like nothing giddy like that. For a team like that to make it to the Europa League, for a place like that to expect Europa League football next season, I think this is such a big deal. So Glasner and Kupal, I don't know if they'll get statues or anything like that, but this is the kind of team you never ever forget in Palace folklore. Like, Eze is etched in there, like his name will be there. The guy who scored the goal against Pep Guardiola's team, and there's no other team than a Manchester City team that
4 straight champions. They had won the league, and everyone will say, "Look, this Man City team, even though they won the decline, they had just won the league 4 times in a row."
It's a big deal, huge deal. Let's take our final break for the show. When we come back, we'll get into some other leagues, and then we'll close out the show. Welcome back to Scorecard here on Channel 1 TV. Let me read a few more messages before we enter into our next batch of highlights. This one here is from Milton Miles. First time texting. He says, I still think Chelsea can qualify. And please tell Mr. Susu we are going to surprise him for sure. Sherry from Tema Community 3 says, I'm disappointed with my team, Manchester City, for not winning the FA Cup. I didn't even know the reason Haaland did not take the penalty. Can't wait for the Europa relegation final. Wishing Spurs well. This taking shots at everybody. Anyway, let's get to Italy, where they're literally the only title still to be decided. Looks like it will go down to the final day. Napoli and Parma were in action. Inter Milan were also in action against Lazio. Both teams failing to win. Let's get the Inter Milan highlights first. They drew 2-2. Let's get that one first, and then we'll come back and discuss. So 2-2 is how this one played out. Inter Milan trying everything possible not to win the league. They had a window this weekend because Napoli slipped up. They slipped up as well.
Yeah, very surprising because I thought Inter could win this game. I thought, look, Lazio at home. Lazio are a good team. Lazio also.
I told you they had more difficult games. Their games are tricky.
We said. Remember, we did say that looking at the difficulty of the games, that Inter are more likely to slip.
Yeah.
And that's why Napoli are in the driver's seat because Parma, who are 16th, 15th, You'd expect Napoli to get that done, but they just couldn't do it. Yeah. And look, they are lucky Inter didn't win, because if Inter had won, Inter would have gone into the final day against Como in the driver's seat. But luckily for Napoli, both of them couldn't get the results. Inter threw it away. They just never got started. They play Cagliari on the last day. That's a kind of derby, southern Italian derby there. And they are trying, Cagliari are not a great team. Cagliari are 14th, 15th there, and that just about the relegation. Okay. They're a team that basically has just survived. They are they are happy to be in the league. They are not going to go down based on how the table is looking now. So they are feeling a bit free and that kind of stuff. But it's still the last day, the nerves. Do they have the bottle? Do they have the mentality?
And they have the distraction of the Champions League final to contend with.
Exactly. There's no easy game or difficult game on the last day.
I look at Cagliari. If Napoli can't beat Cagliari, they don't deserve to win the league.
I think they'll be playing at home, right?
Yes, they are.
There's that.
Yes, I believe if they can't win that game, they don't deserve to win. Como, who are playing very well under Cesc Fabregas. They are a very dangerous team. Very, very dangerous because they've been difficult for the big teams to face. A lot of the big teams have played them and they've not had a good games at all. Yeah. So, very difficult game coming up.
But you expect Napoli to finish?
Oh, if Napoli don't finish, I'll be very shocked. Because I said at the beginning of the season that I thought Inter had the better players. They should be able to win the league. But they just dropped some points. They were a bit careless at moments where they should have been. Even today is a good example. You take the lead and
few minutes to end the game.
10 minutes left, you concede a penalty. Now it's 2-2. Because if you go into that game against Como knowing that you need to win, you're in the driver's seat, I think Inter would have been able to do their business. But they've messed themselves up, and I think that's the story of their season. At the moment, you expect them to be a bit stronger because the Coppa Italia semi-final is a good example. They shouldn't have let Milan beat them 3-0. This Milan team should not be turning you over 3-0, considering how you are playing. So they've had a few shaky moments, and that worries me for the Champions League final. I know we are talking about them as a great coach team and that kind of stuff, but there's just been too many moments of carelessness this season.
Nubo? I think they found it over to Napoli. Just as I mentioned, the Champions League final is a distraction. You're going against Como, a very well settled
Americans team. Will have a very sinister mindset going into that game.
And then Napoli, all they have to do is just win. Any way, any form, they have to just win. And I don't think anybody thought Napoli would be anywhere close to the league. You look at this team, it's full of quote and unquote rejects from the Premier League and all those things. Conte didn't come in so early, so he's had to really just mold this team into some shape and form. They themselves should have been far ahead, if you ask me.
The last couple of weeks have been terrible for them.
There was a run where they drew like 4 consecutive games or so, where they could have put some healthy gap between themselves and Inter. And Inter has given it back to them. So all they have to do is go into the final day winning, knowing that Inter has that whole Champions League distraction and all those things. So they just have to win, and then I think Napoli edged it this time round.
Well, let's get to Napoli themselves. They were up. It was a goalless game. My good friend Scott McTominay was in the mix. He tried, he huffed and puffed, he couldn't get his goal. Romelu Lukaku was featuring as well. They have a lot of my favorite players in that mix. Let's get the highlights. It was goalless, but let's check it out regardless. So close shave. Zambo and Grease are going close. They're hitting the inside of the post. Probably hard luck. I'm sure they thought they should have finished that. But like we just rightly mentioned, you think Napoli should have enough firepower to finish off Cagliari? I don't know.
They should. I mean, look.
Plus, Conte is a championship-winning coach.
Yeah, I mean, they've
had a lot of these funny results over the past 5-6
Even
weeks.
Today was funny.
Yes.
They should have. This is a game they should have won.
Yeah, but Parma even should have beaten them in the first game. I don't know if you guys saw that game. Parma were, I believe, a goal up, 2 goals up, and they ended up with 9 men. Their keeper was sent off, and Napoli scored 2 stoppage time goals to win, or something like that. This was in the first few months of the season, so this was like September, October. I remember the game. I was very shocked, like that. Parma could throw the game away like that. But look, Parma actually started the season quite well, fell off anyway. So for me, Parma was going to be a slightly difficult game, knowing that they can raise their level. So I'm not too surprised. Parma also worried Inter a few weeks ago, if I remember correctly. So
I think they beat them,
something, or they drew, or they came back exactly. So Parma are not a bad team at all. So it's an okay result, but
they are coached by Christian Kivu.
Interesting, very interesting.
Christian Kivu and Antonio Conte were both sent off at the end of this game.
Yeah, because there was a penalty thing that we didn't
Almost
see.
took like 5 minutes to
review. Yeah, a very
review.
long penalty check that ended up with no penalty for Napoli. So, but look, when you look at these teams, the way the Serie A season has gone, Napoli will be worthy winners for sure. I mean, no one expected them to. Everyone said, okay, it's Conte, one game a season, let's see what he can do. Everyone thought, okay, Napoli will definitely be in the Champions League hands, but Inter will be too strong for them. But look, Inter have been a bit lackadaisical, like I said, a bit careless. And Napoli have picked up their pieces and they'll be very worthy champions. And it will be even more impressive because they lost Kivica Kvaratskhelia halfway through the season. They've had a lot of
didn't want to sign, he left.
They had a lot of injury issues.
Because they still managed to improvise
using the two attackers who basically won you the league the last time and still getting over the line. That's a great achievement.
Really. And I like the fact that a lot of young managers are coming. Like I mentioned, Kivu. We had Mota, he's been fired anyway, that's fine. I think Nesta is coming.
Pisa. Nesta is at Monza. Pisa is Filippo
Inzaghi. So the
Inzaghi, we see the Inzaghi brothers in Serie A next season.
There's a lot of that happening. A lot of the ex-Italian players are picking up managerial spots. Let's finish off the action in Spain. Barca were up against Villarreal. Difficult game for them. They've already won the title. Real Madrid were up against Sevilla. So let's get back-to-back highlights of those two games. So Barcelona managing to win despite not needing to win. Villarreal, I believe, are through to Europe based on that result. And then Real Madrid as well, wrapping up their game against Sevilla. Let's wrap it up here, guys. Quick thoughts on the La Liga games played. Yamal doing Yamal things.
Yeah, in the end, Villarreal won the game. They have qualified for the Champions League. So the Champions League is set in La Liga. So congratulations to Villarreal, Athletic Club, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, and of course Barcelona. And they will represent La Liga in the Champions League.
Atletico fell out of the Champions League?
No, I'm congratulating them. These are the teams in they are third. But Athletic Club could overtake them. They're only 2 points ahead of Athletic Club. So very interesting last day. Maybe Athletic Club really won third and Ernesto Valverde wants to show that he's the man. So look, very interesting
Make up for missing out on the
very
Europa League
interesting
final.
Season. Barca led by 9 points at a point. Madrid too led by 9 points. But eventually both teams, they came back, met in the middle again, and Barca did the business when they had to. Very impressive performance from Barcelona. Very impressive from Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, and Lewandowski. Great performance from all of them. Great performance from Pedri. So yeah, great season for Barcelona.
Who wins Player of the Season for La Liga or Barca even? It's going to come from Barca obviously, but who wins it? Rafinha has had a crazy season. Yamal's had a good season.
Pedri is also there.
Where does it go?
If you ask me, I think I give it to Rafinha. Over the entire season, Yamal has really come to the fore.
In the second round.
Yes, so I give it to him. But I mean, now there are chances for Ballon d'Or and things like that. So let's see how that ends up.
I mean, there's the numbers argument and there's the eye test argument. I think Lamine Yamal is winning the eye test, quote unquote, and
and it's more exciting to be doing this at age 17. It's like the storylines are bigger.
But Rafinha's numbers have been.
Rafinha's had a storm of
very
and to think that they actually thought about getting rid of him.
In fact, he had
after the last
to
campaign.
talk to what's his name, Hansi Flick. After a week, he said that look, he's been there at the club. He's thinking about leaving. But he talked to his wife about it. His wife said, just talk to the coach, see what happens. He spoke to the coach. He trained her. The coach said, okay, I like your attitude. I think you have it. You have something to say.
And look at that.
And look at it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Especially on the side of the pitch he's been playing from. You'd think the way people play inverted wingers now, he'd be getting more goals if he was playing on the right. But he still had
he's played almost every role for them. Left, right, central. He's gone all over the pitch for them, and I think he's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think overall he's had the
goal
best
contributions, not even just the goals, the assists as well. Yeah, he's a double figures in assists, double figures in goals. Wow. So Rafinha, to think that he came from Leeds United, and then people were saying all kinds of things.
But I want to give some credit to Kylian Mbappe. I know people have felt like he's destabilized their team, but he scored about 39 goals this season in all competitions. He's leading the La Liga scoring charts with 29 goals. He's very likely to win the Pichichi in his first season. Wow. Could easily score 30 goals, league goals in his first season, 40 overall. I think that's not to be sniffed at. I know it hasn't gone the way he wanted. I'm sure he wanted to win the Champions League or at least win La Liga.
Yeah.
And he only has to take the UEFA Super Cup and the Intercontinental Cup, two less meaningful trophies as consolation. He scored a hat-trick in El Clasico. I think on an individual level, he's done very
it's
well.
a season to be happy about.
But I think for the team, as a team player, he won't be happy.
He needs to be on Real Madrid to reinforce this team. I mean, strengthen this team. If not, he has to start making some serious.
Well, they started. Dean Howson is coming. We're hearing another centre back.
They need to.
A new coach is coming.
I'm happy that Real Madrid are finally paying attention to their defense, because that never happens. But thank you very much, Susu. Thank you very much, Nubo. And thanks to all of you who made time to watch the show and also to send in messages into the show. Same time next week, Scorecard will be back.